Doesn't it feel like Doctor Strange is becoming the new main face for the MCU? Phase 4 has bumped up the magic and the multiverse in recent projects, and Doctor Strange seems like the key for both of them. And with his own sequel so close that we can all practically smell the goatee dye, I thought it was time to rank the most powerful Doctor Strange villains. Does he have as good of a rogues gallery as other Avengers? Let's find out. I mean, it's a lot of demons, dark lords, evil wizards, etc., but how do they all rank next to each other? Okay, ready? Here we go. So this list is going to start from the bottom and work its way up, and I know that there are some super powerful villains that could take up this bottom spot, but I really wanted to mention the Band of the Bland. This group of less than stellar supervillains were introduced in a Howard the Duck issue and ended up crossing paths with the Sorcerer Supreme and even besting him in their first tussle. So yeah, they definitely deserve a spot on this list. Oh, but these guys, woof. There's a reason they're called the Band of the Bland. It's because their powers are both problematic and just sort of lame. You have Sitting Bullseye, an undercover ex-CIA operative who had his cover blown once and his enemies tattooed a big bullseye on his chest, making him now super easy to hit. You have Tilly the Hun. You have the Spanker, who was the former headmaster of a prep school but was fired for excessive corporal punishment, and now spends his villain days spanking his enemies with a paddle. You have Dr. Angst, the master of mundane mysticism, and then the only sort of terrifying one, Black Hole. He was hit by a grain of dwarf star matter that fell from space and now can create a black hole in his body that sucks up people to parts unknown. As Dr. Angst clarifies, they're all derivative losers who haven't had an original thought in their life. But again, they did catch Doctor Strange off guard once, so you never know in the future. With a little practice, they could work their way up from total losers to a slight annoyance. Aim big, guys. You know what superhero movies love? Mindless, soulless creatures for our heroes to punch. All the big Avengers films like to pit our heroes against alien invaders, Ultron drones, and more alien invaders that are presented as just bad guys that Hulk can smash into oblivion. Do these groups come from a planet and probably were just soldiers forced to work under Thanos under threat of having their planets destroyed completely? Let's not think about that so we don't feel bad about Tony snapping them all away. Anyways, if the MCU ever wants to have Doctor Strange fight one of these big armies of bad guys, then he'll probably have to face the Undying Ones. These monstrous beasts are demons spawned in another dimension and have occasionally found their way to Earth. In one of their biggest storylines, Strange and Namor had to team up in order to stop their invasion. Sure, just one of these Undying Ones probably wouldn't stand much of a threat against the Sorcerer Supreme, but just imagine in the Strange sequel that Steven hops through a bunch of different dimensions and then gets trapped in one where he has to face 1,000 of these guys? That's a cool fight and could push Strange to his limits. Doctor Doom is generally associated with the Fantastic Four, but he's also such a great villain that he can clash with just about anyone. It's why he's one of the greatest Marvel villains around. I feel like they should make him a perfect evil mix between Tony Stark and Stephen Strange. He's got the arrogance down for sure, but he's also an incredible genius who can build all sorts of dangerous weaponry and tech, but also has a solid base of mystical abilities as well. So Tony Stark's tech background mixed with strange magic abilities all wrapped up in the mind of a ruthless, arrogant egomaniac? Sounds cool, right? And although Doom and Strange haven't battled a whole lot compared to the others on this list, I wanted to include him here because of all the potential a fight between the hero and villain would have. There's a really great story called Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment that puts the two on a collision course. And no, they don't fight because Doctor Strange is upset that Doctor Doom isn't actually a real doctor and Doom just calls himself one because he's arrogant. No, they clash in a battle that proves who would be the next Sorcerer Supreme. Seeing Doom and Strange compete in a mystical trial using different abilities would be awesome to see in live action. So although Doom isn't Strange's most powerful enemy, he's certainly one of the most intriguing. It's unlikely that we'll ever see the Imperator in live action, mostly because his motives are almost exactly the same as another big Strange villain that's already causing trouble in the films and who will make an appearance later on in this list. But that's a shame because the Imperator is quite cool. He hails from a different dimension where his parents were taken out by a bunch of Shuma-Gorath worshipping fanatics because they didn't like how the Imperator's parents were into that whole believing in science thing. Crazy, right? Anyways, as an adult, the Imperator vowed to embark on his own crusade to hunt down and eliminate all magic users across different dimensions, thinking that magic was something that shouldn't exist anywhere. And yes, when you hear that, you immediately think of Baron Mordo from the MCU, who has almost this exact same motivation now. Alright, there are a lot of big demon creatures on this list, and it's interesting how Marvel has decided to set them apart from one another. For example, Satannish looks like a normal demon, you know, with the horns and the fire hands and all that, but also comes with a secondary face on his stomach. I guess that's a better place than his butt or on the bottom of his foot, right? He'd be a little less intimidating then. Anyways, Satannish is extremely powerful. He's the classic version of that one specific type of demon who's always making deals with humans in order to get their souls. He's a soul collector. Anyways, on top of having to deal with this incredibly dangerous demon, Satannish also comes with his own cult. The Sons of Satannish are his main group of followers, consisting of sorcerers on Earth who want to do the demon's bidding. I count Satannish and the Sons of Satannish as a package deal, and putting them together creates a major headache for Doctor Strange. The House of Shadows is another quirky enemy of Doctor Strange that doesn't quite fit that demon or evil sorcerer mold that a lot of Strange villains fall under. Don't get me wrong, I love those villains, but the House of Shadows is a literal haunted house. How do you fight a haunted house? Do you just start breaking walls and hope they're load-bearing or something? In the comics, the House of Shadows isn't necessarily a big presence. Basically, it's revealed to be an evil entity from a shadow world that came to Earth to observe humanity that Doctor Strange ended up banishing. Now, yes, you may be asking why this isn't at the very bottom of this list, but I'll tell you, dear listener, it's because I see the potential here. Having Doctor Strange fight an evil house could be one of the coolest cinematic experiences we've ever seen in the MCU. Picture it for a second. Remember in Thor Ragnarok when Strange was whipping Thor all around the Sanctum Sanctorum to mess with the God of Thunder a bit? Now imagine Doctor Strange in that same situation, having to use his magic and his wits to outsmart a massive evil entity that looks like your everyday suburban home. In fact, now that I think about it, if there's a way to get Doctor Strange and Thor in the house together, then that would just be flat out amazing. I'd pay good money to see Thor get spooked by a haunted house. So anyway, I know on paper this doesn't seem that powerful, but I think it could give us something really cool in the future. To really stand out as a dark magician in the Marvel Universe, I think there are two important aspects. You gotta get your color scheme right, as well as rock an awesome, memorable hairstyle. And I think Kaluu passes both of these requirements. Kaluu in the comics grew up with the Ancient One. Both of them started training together to learn the mystic arts, and all seemed great, right? Wrong. Remember how in school they taught you about peer pressure and to not fall in with the wrong crowd? Well, I'm pretty sure this is what they were talking about. Kaluu met an evil vampire, and it gave Kaluu knowledge of the Darkhold. Kaluu quickly turned to the dark side and set out to take over everything. Kaluu is dangerous because of his extreme magical abilities and his intimate knowledge of the Ancient Ones' practices and history. What's fun though is that he's not always a bad guy. A few times, Kaluu has found himself fighting for the side of good, which creates a fascinating character that I want to see later in live action. Like, I enjoy that he's not all good. For instance, he once agreed to help Doctor Strange fight off demonic forces if Strange agreed to become his disciple. Strange refused, of course, but it's a fun character overall. I'm definitely going to get to Dormammu higher up on this list, but let's keep it in the family for a second and talk about Dormammu's evil sister. Umar the Unrelenting is just as sinister as her brother, but possesses powers Dormammu does not. Like, did you know that on her trivia page under abilities, the only thing it lists is she's been able to seduce the Hulk at least twice? I find that kind of funny. Let's see Dormammu try that. Anyway, she has a ton of other powers that make her a real nightmare to deal with. She's a master of interdimensional teleportation, time travel, energy blasts, limited mind control, and has even ruled the Dark Dimension. She's so powerful that Doctor Strange actually had to summon another villain in order to stop her. That brings us to the next entry on this list. Zom is an extra-dimensional monster who has claimed he was just created to destroy things. He is the one monster that Umar could never beat, which is why Doctor Strange summoned him to fight her. Dormammu and the cosmic being Eternity were originally the ones who were able to lock Zom away for a bit, bounding his hands with the links of living bondage, forcing him to wear a crown of blindness, and placing him in a legendary amphora. But this amphora has been described as a world beyond all worlds and time beyond all times, so yeah, they basically locked him in jail and threw away the key. And of course, when Doctor Strange summoned Zom, the monster beat Umar, but then Zom became a problem that the Living Tribunal, which is one of the most powerful cosmic entities in the multiverse, had to dispatch. Phase 4 might focus a lot on Doctor Strange being a hero, but what if he turned evil? Could anyone stop him? I think it'd be tough. That's why evil Doctor Strange is the next entry on this list. Yes, an evil Doctor Strange doesn't have a huge role in the comics or anything, but the MCU has laid the groundwork for this character in a few interesting ways. First of all, the evil Doctor Strange was the focus of the best What If episode, which saw Strange become obsessed with breaking an absolute point in time and being consumed with dark energy. We know this version is more powerful than good guy Doctor Strange because Bad Strange won in their fight. Sure, I don't think you can count that as winning, since by destroying Good Strange, evil Doctor Strange broke his entire universe, but still. And then later on in What If's run, we saw this same Doctor Strange get his bearings and fight to save the multiverse, which means he's tremendously powerful. The teaser trailer for Multiverse of Madness teased either the same evil Doctor Strange or a similar variant. And if What If is any indication, good Doctor Strange is in trouble. Nightmare is a fear lord and can attack people when they're most vulnerable. He has abilities that make it impossible for any normal hero to beat, since he can enter into the minds of humans and just mentally wreck them with terrifying, psyche-damaging nightmares. You can't really punch those nightmares away. This dude is one serious sicko. He's the lord of the nightmare realm, which exists in the dream dimension, and just feels like the embodiment of fear and terror. You also can't truly destroy him, since as long as you have beings who have dreams, Nightmare will always survive. Spooky stuff. Out of all the dimensions that Strange could deal with in Multiverse of Madness, the one that poses perhaps the most danger to him would be the Nightmare Realm, which is great news for us, bad news for the Sorcerer Supreme. Look, the Mephisto joke about him showing up in the MCU might be overkill at this point, and I can't promise I won't make it again, but it's only because we all really want Mephisto in the MCU. Basically, Marvel's devil, Mephisto is one of Doctor Strange's most powerful enemies, as well as all of Marvel. A lot of these villains feel like just Doctor Strange villains, but Mephisto could legitimately be the next MCU big bad. He's that powerful and dangerous. He's a Class 2 demon who gets his power thanks to evil in the human world. So as long as things like Twitter algorithms, bank overdraft fees, and alarm clocks exist in this world, Mephisto will always exist. What I like about Mephisto is that, yeah, he could just blast you away with pure power if you wanted, but he's also smart enough to manipulate and trick you to destroy yourself. Chances are, he'd like watching that too. Baron Mordo is one of Doctor Strange's most famous enemies, and although he's not quite on the same level as an all-powerful demon or extra-dimensional entity, he ranks so high on this list because of just how often he's a pain in Doctor Strange's side. Like, it seems that whenever Doctor Strange turns a corner, bam, Baron Mordo is there trying to make himself the most powerful magician of all time. And doesn't it seem like the MCU is setting up Mordo to be Strange's greatest enemy ever? Like, the first film had them start off as friends, but then by the end it turned Mordo heel and he vowed to eliminate all the magic in the world. I wonder how he's going to feel when he learns there are multiple dimensions out there filled with magic users. I'd be a little disheartened. Anyways, Multiverse of Madness seems to have too much going on for Mordo to be the main villain, but maybe they're continuing to grow his character to be the ultimate antagonist in Doctor Strange 3. Dormammu has been mentioned a few times on this list, and we've seen him in the MCU, so you have a general idea of just how powerful this entity is. He's capable of destroying everything in our dimension by swallowing it in darkness, and I would argue he's the most powerful villain we've ever seen in the MCU so far. Yeah, we only got lucky that Doctor Strange had the Time Stone and basically annoyed Dormammu enough to leave Earth alone forever. Hope he keeps his word. So the big question I'll ask is, do you think there's room for Dormammu to come back? He's terrifying and could cause a lot of trouble for us if he were to make a return, but I think this list proves there's enough variety in Doctor Strange villains to keep him out of the MCU for a little while, right? In fact, there's one being who's even more powerful than him. That brings us to our final entry. Shuma-Gorath is Strange's most powerful enemy. The multi-tentacled, one-eyed people eater is an elder god that once ruled the earth along with hundreds of other dimensions. He's truly a force to be reckoned with, and he just exudes power in all his tentacle glory. He can destroy galaxies and realities on a whim, so better not draw his attention. And did your theater cheer in No Way Home when the post-credit scene that featured the Multiverse of Madness teaser trailer seemed to confirm that Shuma-Gorath would factor into the film in some way? Is he the main villain of Multiverse of Madness, or are we just getting a tease to suggest that Shuma-Gorath is out there and we shouldn't mess with him? Tough to say. With all these powerful villains, do you think any of them could become the next uber big bad for the MCU franchise? Sure, probably not Band of the Bland, but I mean, Mephisto has to be around the corner any day now, right? And he poses a threat to a ton of different Avengers, not just Strange.